Testing 1, 2, testing.
Could the translators do a quick check on English and then French? Thank you.
Hello, this is the interpreter on the English channel. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing on the English channel. Can you hear me? Test 1, 2, 3. Hello, this is the interpreter. Testing the English channel. Test 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Testing the English channel. Test 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello. Testing the English channel. Hello. Can anybody hear me? This is the interpreter testing the English channel. Testing the English channel. Hello. Hello, hello. Test 1, 2, 3. Testing the English channel. Hello, hello.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Now that Vice Chair Kitts has joined us, no, just kidding. I'm kidding. We'll commence with the meeting. So first of all, I'd like to recognize that we're on the unceded Anishinaabe Nation, which cultures and presence has nurtured and continues to nurture this land today. Just going to look at doing a quick roll call from the committee coordinator. Excuse me.
Councillor Bradley,
Here.
Councillor DeRose,
Here.
Councillor DeRoche, Councillor Devine,
Here.
Councillor Dudas,
Here.
Councillor Gower,
Here.
Councillor Johnson, Councillor Lowe,
Here.
Councillor Luloff,
Présent.
Councillor Troster,
Here.
Vice Chair Kitts,
Here.
and Chair Tierney.
And I'm here. So let's begin today. We'll do agenda clearing first. We have no notices of motion for this meeting. Declarations of interest, we have none. Confirmation of the minutes, Thursday, 16th November 2023. Are those confirmed and carried? Thank you. Responses to inquiries, we have two. The pedestrian accessibility always stop control, and we also have the guardrail option along the stretch of McCarthy Road. There's nothing to be done there.
I have a couple questions
Okay, so on which one specifically?
on the pedestrian accessibility.
Is it pretty short?
It's pretty short.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
do that right
Just
now.
questions to staff, is that okay?
Sure, that's fine.
Thanks. I think Councillor Gower was nodding his head. Same item? Okay. Go. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm just wondering, so the report says that there's changes that need to be made to 95 locations. Can you just give us a sense of what kind of changes we're talking about here? These are for all-way crossovers and all-way stop controlled intersections and pedestrian crossovers.
Oh, thank you, through you, Chair. The modifications that are required are typically curb cuts or ramping, as well as TWISY installation.
So why weren't they installed beforehand?
A lot of the intersections were warranted or there was direction to install different forms of traffic control at these locations. And prior to a recent initiative with the Accessibility Office, there was a different interpretation of what level of change would require geometric modifications to meet the accessibility standards.
Okay, well, I certainly support us retrofitting these intersections so they meet our accessibility standards. I just noticed it says that it'll cost $5 million. So is this separate from the annual $200,000 that's allotted to pedestrian accessibility?
That is the total cost of all of the retrofits that are required, an estimate at this time. So the $200,000 a year that's allocated through the PAIR program would go towards that $5 million each year.
Okay, I'm just concerned because $200,000 over 6 years is only 1.1 million, so we can't meet this goal if this is the budget. So is this something you think we're going to need to budget more for going forward?
In 2024, there was additional funding allocated through the Road Safety Action Plan to help address some of these locations, and the plan is going forward to put in a budget request through the Road Safety Action Plan annual budgeting process to provide additional funding to meet that target.
Okay, great. And I'm just wondering, how will the locations be prioritized?
The locations are prioritized based on the need. So it would be warranted locations first. There are a number of unwarranted locations that are also on the list. We look at the needs, so if there are parks or schools or facilities in the area that are in higher need of accessibility retrofits, those would be prioritized first over the unwarranted or the locations that have are less used by pedestrians.
Okay. Will councillors have a chance to offer input into that? I just say that because I know I have a lot of locations where, for example, I know a lot of seniors live, or there's a lot of accessible apartments. Would there be an opportunity, like, to sort of see what the list is in your ward?
Certainly, we can provide the list.
That would be great. Thank you so much. And I'm just wondering if any other infrastructure or transportation projects will have to be delayed to accommodate these retrofits, or if this is something you see staffing up for separately.
No, this can be accommodated within existing budgets and resources.
Okay, great. One more question. So I know some of these are also locations where there might also be an adult school crossing guard. Would this change the process for intersections that require a crossing guard? Like I'm saying, would these changes make the intersection safer and therefore maybe not require a crossing guard, or is that a totally separate issue?
It's a separate issue. So we would still run the warranting process for adult school crossing guards, and if it meets warrants, then we would implement the accessibility features to provide that form of traffic control at that
Okay,
location.
thanks. That's all my questions.
Great, thank you. Yours is just as quick, or should I add it to the agenda?
Even quicker.
I love it. Go.
Not a question. Thank you, staff, for the response. I just wanted to highlight for colleagues that this is a very big change of process for unwarranted stop signs compared to the previous term, or 2 terms, maybe 3 terms. Previously, if council approved an unwarranted stop sign, it would be installed within a few months. Now, those stop signs will not be installed until the intersection in question is accessible in all 4 directions. There's a few exceptions perhaps to that, but that's a big change. And that means curb cuts, twizzies, other considerations. This inquiry came because I had 5 locations in my ward where I wanted to do unwarranted stops at the beginning of this term. Only one of those is going to qualify. The other 4 are going to have to wait likely a number of years until city staff get through the backlog of inaccessible locations currently. So for any of you who may have made commitments to residents around unwarranted stop signs, make sure you read through this report and talk to staff, because that process is very different now. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Gower. Seeing nothing else on that, so obviously we have the inquiries which we received. Referrals, we have this motion by Councillor Brockington about the relocation of ASE cameras. The councillors indicated he wants to withdraw the motion, but as rules of procedure, we're simply just going to receive this item. There'll be no further action, and it will carry to council for information only. Are we all good on that one? Carried? Received. Sorry, it says received. You tell me what to do, and I always mess it up. Item 6.1, Wellington Street Transportation Study Update. Again, this is just data and study update, but we do have 2 people in to speak today, so we'll hold that item. And the offices of the city clerk, really entertaining stuff. Transportation inquiries and motions for the period ending February 9th. Is this report received? Thank you. And no in-camera items. The Painted Up program, you might have seen me tweet it out. We're very excited about that. That's going to be great news. This is just IPD, but I look forward to seeing some of those wonderful murals and art out in the community. So at this point, I'll go back to the remaining item on the agenda. I believe we've all read the report and the great data collected. At this point, I'll ask, we won't have a presentation on this at this point, but staff will be around if there's questions after our delegations. First delegation is Neil Smutra. Jeff Hopper just took over and moved 100. I'm like, who knows? It's going to be a tough day for him. Oh, I guess, yeah. Yep, perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, Neil. You're no stranger to this place. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Great. Thanks very much, Tim. Thanks, committee. Listen, the reason I came here today was, like many people around the city, I heard about this report through the media. The story that came out in the media was that to close off Wellington would require $26 million in reconfiguration of traffic signals downtown, and that it was going to have a big impact. That was the story that came from the media. I was actually really a bit disappointed with the media for that story, because when I look at both the staff report and also the report from the consultant, it's actually a very different story, right? The story is that there are 3 options here about what could happen with traffic. We could have a high, we could have a medium, or we could have a low scenario. In the case of the low scenario, there is zero impact on anything, okay? And yet, all the media reports were all about, this is the high case scenario, and how on earth are we going to manage that? And so I want to talk about, if we think about these three scenarios, high, medium, or low impact, which one is most likely? And I've certainly heard at this committee discussed before the issue of induced demand, right? That if we make roads bigger, we get more cars using it, and so within about 18 months, that roadway gets used up and all of the hope for relief of congestion has gone away. We also know that the opposite applies, right? The opposite of induced demand is reduced demand, or as some people call it, traffic evaporation. And so there's if we were to look at the three scenarios for Wellington as to what could happen, history will tell us that reduced demand is the most likely outcome. What will happen, and I think we can all understand this personally. Let's think about when the Highway 417 was closed for the Percy Bridge overpass replacement. For those of us that have cars, what did we do? Did we decide that's the weekend we're going to go out and, go along the 417? I think what most people did is they said, okay, if I don't have to go out this weekend in that direction, I'm not going to go, or I'm going to go somewhere else, or if I have to go downtown, I'm going to find some other way to get downtown. In other words, we changed our behavior. Okay, we changed our behavior when the roadways were less available, and that's exactly what we should expect to happen with the downtown core. But the other important point to keep in mind is that as a committee, in terms of these three scenarios, you are not powerless on this. You are the ones that decide which scenario will happen. You can decide that through your actions. We've got an official plan that says we want 50% of all trips to be taken by sustainable modes of transportation, and there's a whole bunch of actions that need to be done in order to reach that goal. And a lot of those actions, by the way, are in the energy evolution and the climate change master plan. A lot of them are articulated very clearly there. So the question becomes, are we as a council, are we as a city going to do what is required in order to bring about that change in travel patterns? And that's really a question for you. Again, think about, in terms of these three scenarios, the most likely outcome is that it will be reduced demand just because of the way people's behaviors will adjust. But number two, perhaps the more important question is, as a council, what can you do to actually to bring that about in line with our official plan, in line with our climate change master plan, in line with our energy evolution climate mitigation strategy? So that's what I'd just like to end on one quote from the Parsons report. And that's that all this discussion, and as you've heard me talk, I've talked all about traffic. But the very last line of the Parsons report, and I can't remember whether this is in the staff report also, but at the end of the Parsons report, it ends, and I'll just quote here, "Any decision regarding the future of Wellington Street will be an integral part of a larger policy context, targeting placemaking and design, encompassing layers of interest beyond the efficient movement of vehicles." So in other words, the Parsons traffic engineers are saying, this is way bigger than just traffic. Traffic is just one element, and so let's make sure, obviously they're the traffic engineers, but let's situate this in the larger context. So I won't talk about that, but hopefully other speakers will. And that's what I'd like to share with the committee today. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Right under the wire. Councillor Trosser.
Hi, Neil. Nice to see you again. I will just say, I heard from a lot of residents on Bay Street and on other smaller roads that they did feel the impact and that they felt it compromised pedestrian safety in their part of the neighborhood, even with low traffic during the one-year closure. So I thought I would just say that. It may not be captured in the report, but I think it would be unfair to suggest there was no impact. And I also remain hopeful about the fact that I know it's a temporary bike lane, and the goal is either pedestrianization of the street or a bidirectional cycle track, raised cycle track, which will be eventually installed. But the mode share on that road has changed dramatically since we added the cycle lane, something like 800% increase from 2019 of cyclists on that road. So I understand the spirit of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the question to me is whether, what the right way is to increase mode share on that road, whether it is a better cycling facility or complete pedestrianization. And as we said, the last time we talked about this committee a year ago, the matter of a grand parliamentary precinct really does depend on federal government vision and funding, and on them, frankly, paying to make the changes traffic-wise that would allow us to accommodate a closure of Wellington if that's something that we want to do long term. But I just wanted to clarify that the impact was not nothing.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's insurmountable at all, but I certainly heard from residents, particularly seniors living in the Bay and Albert area, that they felt very unsafe crossing close to where they lived because of diverted traffic during the closure.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Neil. Thank you for coming. I'm always interested in hearing what you want to say about matters. You kind of stole my thunder in that you quoted the line from the Parsons report that I myself wanted to quote, but I think it's a value that quote is part of this conversation. Any decision regarding the future of Wellington Street, and truly any decision, any debate, any discussion regarding the future of transportation across downtown encompass layers of interests beyond simply the efficient movement of vehicles. So I appreciate that conversation is added to this, that when we talk about the future of certainly the urban core, but the future of the city, that our official plan is leading us towards 50% of transportation done by active transportation. And I kind of also share, not to pick at the media, but I share your frustration that the media reporting of this report highlighted an untested, yet to be proven scenario of population growth and vehicle growth that highlights what might be the scary result of this, where it could focus on what is the larger debate about the future of transportation in downtown. So thank you for highlighting that part of the report. Thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you. Great. Seeing no further questions, thanks for your delegation today, Neil. Next up, we have Senator Cardozo. Oh, you are here in person. Good to see you, Senator. Great. You have 5 minutes. You're no stranger to legislative bodies. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, councillors. It's a real pleasure to be here, an honor, and indeed thank you for your time. I'm a long-time resident of Ottawa and joined the Senate a little over a year ago. I've been involved in the community in many ways over many years, going back to Big Brothers, YMYWCA, local immigrant serving centers, and arts groups. I feel there are two ways of looking at the future of Wellington Street. It is a beautification project that has some security benefits, or a security challenge that has some beautification opportunities. This street is unlike any other in the city of Ottawa, and Ottawa is a city unlike any other in the country. We are local, we are communities, and we are also the nation's capital. These are core aspects of our identity. The traffic study is an important addition to the considerations here. It is a traffic study. It's not a tourism study or a pedestrian study or a cyclist study. So I urge you to look at Wellington Street as more than an ordinary arterial roadway. In any city, streets have particular roles that enhance the city as a whole. So in Ottawa, whether it's Bank Street, the streets in the Byward Market or Queen Elizabeth Driveway, they all have special characteristics and roles. I'm arguing for maintaining and enhancing the role that Wellington Street can play. The street plays a special role in that it is the location of our national parliament, the place where all Canadians send their elected members, and when they come and visit here, they feel a certain attachment to the building and to the area. So while the traffic study will look at one aspect of this area, namely traffic, I would suggest that this street also has other roles. I think it is a prime venue for pedestrianization, a street, a plaza that is open to people and closed to vehicles. that does mean that 4 out of 5, the traffic study, I think, notes that about 4 or 5 streets south of Wellington would be affected and can pick up the traffic flow if and when Welling Street is closed. I'm suggesting that we have a seriously upgraded version of a Welling Street Plaza designed perhaps after an international competition that will be a major tourist attraction of interest to locals and visitors. I understand the federal government has made an offer to purchase the road from the City of Ottawa, and I think this is a good solution. For the short term, here are a few ideas, such as closing the streets to vehicles on weekends, or perhaps or perhaps during the summer months, having a plaza where we would close the street to vehicles from the May long weekend till the Labor Day weekend. As the center block on Parliament Hill will remain closed for perhaps the next 10 years for renovation and will soon be covered by a tarp or a trompe-l'oeil, which will look sort of like Parliament Hill, or the Parliament buildings. And as the development of the south side of Wellington begins, there'll be 2 large buildings going up in what's called Block 2. We need to be concerned about the area becoming a white elephant area. Doing something bold and interesting with Wellington will be most timely both for the short term and the long term. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate that. Thanks for your information. I don't see any questions, but thank you for coming out for your delegations today.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you. And I've consulted with most people on committee. I think everything's well detailed in the report. At this point, if you do have a question for staff for clarification, this is your time. But this is data. Oh, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Sorry, I've been out of town for a few days, so you didn't have the opportunity to wrangle me. But I just had a quick question to understand the measure by which this data or this report was constructed. So the multimodal level of service. Just wanted to know because we use it in our transportation impact assessments as well, I believe. When was the last time that those levels of service were updated? And how do those measures renew over time?
Through the chair. So we are actually currently undertaking a project to update the multimodal level of service guidelines, looking at the experience that we've gained in the past number of years in applying those guidelines.
Oh, that's tremendous. So do you have an anticipated report date for those updated guidelines?
So we are consulting on those with the industry this spring, and we'll hope to have something later this year finalized.
Well, that's very exciting because I know that I think we're still working from 2017 data, and I'm sure that those levels of service have evolved quite a bit since then, given the changes in behavior and traffic patterns and our aims. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you for the question, Chair.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Seeing no further questions, I just wanted to thank staff. Collecting this data, this is not the end, but at the same time, very positive feedback in many respects that I didn't even really think would happen. Great on the cycling front, and obviously our ability to move around the city is greatly increased. We're back to pre-2019 levels, so we're very happy about that. And my 2 cents, I think the media is doing accurate reporting. No offense. So that being said, is this item received? Thank you very much, everybody. So now we're going to switch on over to, we have notices of motion. No one leave yet. This is usually where it ends, but we have a couple of things here. So we have notice of motion, paid parking on Linda Lane, and I believe Vice Chair Kitts is introducing this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Moving this on behalf of Councillor Carr. Whereas there is continuing demand for parking on Linda Lane, a local road between Billings Avenue and Smythe Road. And whereas parking on Linda Lane supports access and provides visitors to the Ottawa Hospital's general campus and the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario with short-term on-street parking. And whereas a local a local area parking assessment was completed in 2015, which was in turn tabled to Transportation Committee. And whereas the Ward Councillor's Office regularly receives complaints from local residents and parking users regarding the short-term on-street parking provisions on Linda Lane, and whereas the local area parking assessment committed to continue to monitor and assess the impacts of the reconstruction work, and whereas in 2009, Council approved parking rate setting guidelines in the municipal parking management strategy that provides standard measures and criteria for where and when on-street parking rates should be introduced, adjusted, or removed. And whereas the rate setting guidelines were updated in 2019 through the municipal parking management strategy refresh and governance review, therefore be it resolved that staff conduct an assessment to evaluate paid parking requirements and feasibility on Linda Lane and provide recommendations to Council by Q1 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So we'll discuss that at a next meeting. Councillor Lowe, curbside weeds.
Yes, that's me. Whereas the city does not currently have a maintenance program for regularly cutting and or removing weeds along concrete curbs that do not pose a public safety hazard, and whereas weeds along concrete curbs are currently addressed on an ad hoc basis and reactive basis through service requests submitted through 311, and whereas the city experienced a very warm summer in 2023 with higher than normal precipitation that resulted in an increase in vegetation and weed growth specifically in suburban areas, notably along street edges and curb lines, therefore be resolved that the Transportation Committee recommend to Council that Public Works staff undertake a municipal scan to understand if and how other Canadian municipalities address weeds along concrete curbs. Be it further resolved that staff determine the feasibility of a program to cut and or remove weeds along street edges and curbs, including the staffing, equipment, and budget requirements, as well as a proposed pilot project, and report back to Transportation Committee by the fourth quarter of 2024.
Great, thank you, Councillor Lowe. So we'll deal with that at the next committee. Excuse me. We have no inquiries, but for other business, members of Transportation Committee, and maybe I'll get our wonderful committee coordinator to get a couple images up. I'm excited to announce that Public Works will be coordinating a campaign to name 24 city snowplows in time for winter of 2024-2025. Staff will be asking children to help out with those plows and raise awareness of plow safety. I would encourage children across the city to start thinking about the names that they want for those wintry plows. In the meantime, the campaign is still very much in its early stages, but I just want to let members know, start thinking about it, and we're going to be excited for next winter, even though this winter's a little light. It's plus 10 today. It's certainly, remember last year, we had quite a bit of snow, so we wanted to engage this program. We thought this is a good time to do it. I want to thank staff, Hamilton, Calgary, Kingston, they've all done it, and I hear all the time. And if we could throw the photos up back for 1 second, we'll just rotate through a couple of my personal favorites, if that's okay. So, of course, if we get those on the screen. So I'm obviously over 16 years old, so I won't have any ability to interfere with the process, but Nickelback Express, the Scoop Dog, the Control Salt Delete, and the Taylor Swiftie are top in my list. And then we have a secondary group, which you know, is a little bit of fun as well. I'm not sure if you have the second slide there. There we go. So at the same time, we're kind of excited. I think this will be a little bit of fun and levity and a good way to be able to increase our education across the city. So that is just something I'm throwing out there, just so you're aware. And oddly enough, I have a question from Councillor Luloff. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I realize that you didn't have the second slide there, but would you care to share the other four names that you had? Oh, here we are.
Bonhomme de Neige, the Richardson Road King, Darth Blader, and Celine Dion. But apparently I'm over 16, so none of these will see the light of day. It might be the Papa Plow, I don't know. But anyway, we're really excited. We wanted to have a good meeting during this winter. I hope that answers your question, and I know Councillor Luloff, you'll probably have some ideas of your own.
Fully satisfied with your response, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nickelback. Okay, so on that, that is the final item. So we'll just head to adjournment. The next meeting will be March 28th, 2024. Thank you very much, committee.